daughter-in-law, mother-in-law, uncle. Daughter-in-law and mother-in-law and uncle. Where do these strange family terms come from? When you get married, you begin to deal with terms that before the wedding had never been pronounced. Because after a wedding, suddenly the one we had always called by name or referred to as my fiancé's brother becomes my brother-in-law and his mother my mother-in-law. Just as the daughter's new husband becomes my son-in-law and the son's wife my daughter-in-law. And when you have children, at some point your brothers and sisters become uncles. News published on the portal barinedita.it and its property. Really strange terms, those that indicate a family bond with a sour, unknown and unintuitive taste, which have no connection with other words in common use. And this is unlike what happens in other countries. Let's take mother-in-law. In French it is called belle-mère, literally beautiful mother, and in English mother-in-law, or mother according to the law. It makes sense. But what is mother-in-law? What is the meaning of these words? Let's try to give an answer. Let's start with son-in-law and daughter-in-law. Son-in-law comes from the Latin genus, and indicates the husband of the daughter, or the one who allows to perpetuate the lineage. From here also derives daughter-in-law, since it is a translation of the Latin snusus, whose archaic form was sunus, sui generit. The sphere is therefore always that of the generation of a new part of the family. In the specific case of daughter-in-law, the term indicates in particular the new role of daughter assumed by a married woman in the eyes of her in-laws. While for brother-in-law the word could derive either from, with, punatus, blood relative, or from agnatus, acquired relative. News published on the portal barinedita.it and its property. A term that is more difficult to identify etymologically is uncle. Where could such a short and slightly cacophonous word come from? Among other things, it also begins with a Z, like very few other Italian words. According to scholars, it is an onomatopoeic voice, but at this point we would have to wonder what sound it should reproduce. If bang and splash are onomatopoeia because they reproduce a noise in letters, what is uncle of what is transcription? In the opinion of some etymologists, the term derives instead from the Greek theos, or divine, thus indicating the reverential respect that the nephew had to bring to the brother of the mother or father. It remains to be discovered why such an important meaning was attributed to an uncle and not rather to a grandfather. A partial answer comes from Latin, for which the term avunculus, from which our ancestor derives, originally meant the dearest relative. It is therefore to be imagined that the figure of the uncle represented in ancient times a very respected person in the family. News published on the portal barinedita.it and its property. And finally, mother-in-law. Even in Latin, in fact, there was an ad hoc word to indicate it. Sucrus. But where does sucrus come from? According to linguistics textbooks, the root is even Indo-European suecru, which became svajura in Sanskrit and socras in Latin, where the root soc is the same as partner and therefore refers to the idea of stability, all just to indicate the mother of my husband, or perhaps, who knows, given the word so hard and difficult, the fear I have towards the mother of my husband.